There is a quiet, hidden intelligence within you that knows exactly where you're supposed to go. And when you stop fighting its current, you'll discover that what felt like a dead end was actually a detour to a door you never saw coming. Have you ever reached a point where pushing forward feels like trying to swim through wet cement? To the wall of a person looking out a window, contemplative, you exhaust every option. You follow every piece of conventional advice. Work harder, hustle more, grind until you drop. Yet nothing yields. It's as if the universe itself has locked every exit. Then, in a moment of surrender, when you finally release your grip and take a single breath of pure acceptance, a new path reveals itself. An unexpected conversation, a sudden insight, a solution that arrives not from strain, but from stillness. This isn't coincidence, it's psychology. The pioneering psychiatrist Carl Jung uncovered a profound principle. The more we strive from a place of ego and fear, the more we drift from our soul's true direction. But when we learn the art of sacred pause, when we stop, listen, and trust a wisdom deeper than our own frantic thoughts, a divine navigation system engages. Life begins to guide us in ways logic can't trace, but our spirit can feel with absolute certainty. You might be in that exact season right now, where momentum has stalled, where your best laid plans have frozen solid, where your effort seems to echo in an empty room. The narrative you're telling yourself is one of failure, of weakness. But what if this isn't a blockade? What if this is the guidance itself? What if the universe isn't asking you to push harder against a sealed door, but is gently, firmly pulling you away from a corridor that no longer leads to your destiny? In this exploration, we're going to move beyond simplistic self-help. We'll walk through a psychological framework for understanding why non-action is not passive, but a sophisticated law of inner alignment. When you allow this deeper intelligence to lead, the universe ceases to be your opponent. It becomes your collaborator. Stay with me, because by the end, you may realize that this slowdown is not a curse. It's the first, crucial whisper of a new beginning. 1. The action addiction. When movement becomes a mask for fear, there's a certain anxiety that manifests not as panic, but as a relentless internal pressure. You wake with it, a silent hum that says you must be doing, you must be producing, solving, orchestrating. No external crisis demands it. Yet, an urgent tension builds, convincing you that if you truly stop, the entire fragile structure of your life will crumble. This, according to Jungian thought, is the ego constructing an illusion of progress. It mistakes motion for safety and busyness for worth. We don't act from inspiration in these states. We act from a deep, often unrecognized terror of stillness. Jung observed that the ego is terrified of emptiness because in the quiet it loses its primary reference points. I am what I do. Without constant activity, it feels it ceases to exist, so it manufactures emergencies. It clings to control. It twists situations, all to avoid the vulnerability of simply being. I recall a man who described his decade in corporate finance. Any hint of uncertainty, a shifting market, a vague email would trigger a flurry of activity. He'd reorganize files, craft unnecessary reports, schedule back-to-back meetings. It wasn't efficiency, it was a ritual. Each completed task was a tiny totem he could hold up to his fear, a proof saying, "See, I am in control, I am safe." He didn't burn out from the work itself. He collapsed from the exhausting performance of pretending he was the playwright, director, and lead actor of a play whose script was being written by his anxieties. Imagine the ego as a sailor on a vast, trusting ocean, convinced the ship will sink if they stop pumping the bilge. To B-roll of calm ocean waves, they pump until their muscles scream, mistaking their exhaustion for the storm's fury. All the while they are floating on a sea that could carry them effortlessly, if only they'd notice the supportive current beneath them. The ego trusts only its own aching arms. It cannot trust the water. This is the core of forcing. It is not ambition. Ambition has a vision. Forcing has a fear of losing your place, your identity, your direction. It's the act of clinging to the wall in a dark room, terrified to let go, not realizing the wall itself is the maze. Some hold a lifeless relationship, fearing the void of being uncoupled. Others grip a soul-draining career, terrified of the blank page of a new chapter. Forcing isn't power. It is a sophisticated, camouflaged form of panic. Jung taught that any persistent forcing is a symptom of disconnection from the self, the central whole core of our being. When we lose touch with that inner compass, the ego appoints itself as a desperate substitute, trying to play God. It believes it must manage, manipulate, and micro-control reality. But the soul, your connection to something transcendent, operates on a different frequency. It guides through resonance, not force. It speaks through intuitive nudges, through meaningful coincidences, and through a deep sense of inner knowing. It doesn't need to row frantically. It asks you to feel the current. When you grasp this, a clarity emerges. We don't burn out from doing too much of what enlivens us. We break down from doing too much of what the soul never requested. The ego demands control. The soul requests trust. The ego shouts from fear. The soul whispers from intuition. And every time you choose forcing, you turn up the volume on the fear and mute the guide. But what if you had the courage to release the oars? What if your true strength was revealed not in the struggle, but in the surrender to a wiser flow? 2. The energy exodus, when your soul mutes the world. Once you start to see forcing as a fear response, a second phenomenon comes into sharp focus. Your inner world grows quiet. Projects that once sparked excitement now feel like burdens. Tasks you could perform on autopilot now require Herculean effort to begin. You want to care, you want to push, but your psyche, your very life force, refuses to cooperate. Jung called this life force libido, not just sexual, but the total psychic energy that animates us. He proposed that this energy is not random. It flows intentionally toward what the soul deems meaningful for our growth. When that energy withdraws from a path, a relationship, or a goal, it is a profound signal. That avenue has served its purpose. Your inner being is reallocating resources. This depletion is not laziness. It is communication. Jung wrote, "Where your energy goes, there your heart follows." When the energy vanishes from a direction, it indicates you have reached a point where that path no longer creates the necessary tension of opposites, the creative friction that fuels growth. Your inner calling has simply moved on. A friend, a talented graphic designer, experienced this. For years, opening a new design file felt like unwrapping a gift. Then, a dullness set in. Colors felt flat. Concepts wouldn't come. She diagnosed herself with creative block, redoubled her discipline, bought new software, forced longer hours. The more she pushed, the more hollow she felt. She believed she was losing her gift. Then, almost as a joke, she signed up for a weekend woodworking course. The moment her hands touched the raw wood, a current of aliveness she hadn't felt in years shot through her. Her passion wasn't dead. Her psychic energy had simply evacuated the old vessel of graphic design and was waiting, pooled and potent, for her to discover the new vessel of tangible creation. Her exhaustion was not a lack of passion, but the soul's protest against staying in a room it had already left. Modern neuroscience echoes this ancient wisdom. When you persist in an endeavor that is misaligned with your core values, your brain's reward system downregulates dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and engagement. This isn't a malfunction. It's a protective mechanism. Your biology is conspiring with your psychology to say, this is no longer for you. Stop. Therefore, when the flow stops, the first response should not be a louder hustle, a stricter regimen, or a guilt trip. Forcing at this stage is like trying to pour fuel into an engine that's been removed from the car. You'll just make a mess and exhaust yourself. The intelligent move is to become an archaeologist of your own aliveness. Where has the energy truly withdrawn from? And where, even in the smallest, seemingly trivial moments, does a flicker of curiosity or ease still remain? Those empty phases, those days of profound I don't know, are not wastelands. They are incubation chambers. They are the soul's transition corridor. If you can resist the urge to fill the silence with noise, you'll start to perceive a new language, the language of the self. It doesn't arrive with the ego's booming declarations. It comes on a breeze, a fleeting image as you drift to sleep, a sudden, quiet curiosity about a subject you've never considered, a soft, persistent feeling that points, however vaguely, toward a new horizon. 3. The whispered warning, how your psyche signals through discomfort from a Jungian lens. When the soul attempts to redirect you and you ignore its gentle nudges, the communication must become more urgent. The psyche begins to speak the only language left to get your attention, the language of symptoms. We pathologize these signals. Why am I so distracted? Why is everything so boring? Why do I feel this low-grade anxiety for no reason? We label ourselves unmotivated, defective, or weak. But what if these aren't flaws? What if they are feedback, like warning lights on your car's dashboard? They aren't there to annoy you, but to tell you a system is out of alignment. Jung asserted, the psyche will always seek balance. If you will not listen through intuition, it will speak through emotion. If you ignore the emotion, it will speak through physical tension or instability. And if you continue to resist, it may orchestrate a collapse, not to harm you, but to finally stop you on a path that is causing a deeper harm. This is why what we perceive as misfortune, a job loss, a breakup, a period of burnout, often clusters right before a major life transition. They are not arbitrary punishments. They are corrections. They are the universe's way of dismantling a structure you have outgrown, but are too afraid to leave voluntarily. Consider the biblical metaphor of the Israelites' 40-year journey. The direct route to the promised land was short, but facing certain battles too soon would have broken their spirit and sent them fleeing back to slavery in Egypt. So, a longer, slower path through the desert was chosen, not as a punishment, but as a necessary incubation for their growth. Every time they tried to force a shortcut or return to the familiar, they met resistance, scarcity, conflict, confusion. But when they followed the signs provided, the pillar of cloud by day, fire by night, provision was always there. The desert feeling, the feeling of being stalled and parched, was not abandonment. It was protection. Your symptoms operate on the same principle. The recurring headache at work that vanishes on the weekend, the insomnia that isn't linked to caffeine, but to a vague sense of life being off, the loss of interest in things that used to define you. These are your personal pillars of cloud and fire trying to steer you. Think of a snake shedding its skin. The old layer becomes tight, itchy, restrictive. The discomfort is not a sign of sickness, but of imminent growth. The snake must rub against rocks to break free. Your psychological and physical symptoms are that same tightness. They signal that you are ready to shed an old identity, an old way of being. Cling to it, and you suffocate. Acknowledge the signal, and you expand. So, shift the question. Stop asking, how do I make this bad feeling go away? Start asking, what is this feeling trying to show me? In Jung's framework, symptoms are not your enemies. They are loyal, if persistent, messengers standing with you, trying to guide you home. 4. The sacred unraveling when breakdown precedes breakthrough. Understanding symptoms as guidance leads us to a challenging yet liberating truth. Sometimes, a collapse is not a disaster. It is a divine deconstruction. We perceive the crumbling of a relationship, a career, a long-held dream as pure loss. We see it as the universe being cruel, as proof of our failure. But from the soul's perspective, certain structures can only be left through collapse because we have become too attached to their familiar shape. Jung suggested that what falls apart in our lives are often rotten walls we've been leaning on for safety, long past their integrity. When the soul is ready to move you onward, but your ego refuses to release its grip, life may do what you cannot. It removes the prop, not to hurt you, but to force your hand into openness. He famously said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The crack created by a collapse is often where the light and a new beginning gets in. Some doors will never open until the entire hallway behind you falls away. Consider the ecology of a forest. A wildfire appears catastrophic. Yet, in nature, fire is a regenerative force. It clears dense undergrowth, allows sunlight to reach the forest floor, and releases seeds from cones that require intense heat to germinate. Life doesn't end. It reorganizes at a higher order of complexity. Your life operates on this same ecological principle. When something burns down, a relationship that once nurtured you but now diminishes you, a career that provided security but now drains your spirit, it is often because a deeper intelligence is clearing the ground. It is making space for a new growth that matches who you have become internally, a growth that was impossible in the shade of the old towering trees. People ask, if a loving intelligence guides us, why allow such pain? Perhaps the answer is starkly simple, because you would not leave otherwise. The divine does not break your spirit. It breaks the cages your spirit has outgrown, and it does so at the moment when you have gathered just enough strength to survive the liberation, but not enough courage to initiate it yourself. Therefore, a collapse is rarely a period. It is a semicolon. It is the necessary pause before the sentence of your life restructures into a more coherent, powerful statement. When you learn to differentiate between a true loss and a sacred liberation, you realize that some things leave your life not because you are unworthy, but because you have grown beyond their capacity to hold you. 5. The language of coincidence, synchronicity as your compass. So, after the unraveling, the quiet, and the redirection, how do you know you're finally on the right path? How can you tell the difference between a path that requires patience and one that's simply wrong? For Jung, the answer isn't found in analysis alone. It's found in what the outer world begins to reflect back to you. When your inner state shifts toward alignment, the external world starts speaking in a special dialect, the language of synchronicity. Synchronicity is not mere luck. It's a meaningful coincidence, an event where inner psychology and outer circumstance align with such poetic timing that it feels guided. It's thinking of an old friend, and they call, It's releasing an old dream, and a new, more fitting opportunity appears within days. It's struggling with a question, and the next book you pick up opens to a passage that serves as a direct answer. Jung saw this as evidence of a unifying principle connecting the psyche and the material world. When you walk against your soul's direction, reality feels heavy, obstructive, like wading upstream. Emails go unanswered, plans fizzle, connections feel forced. But when you release resistance and move with your genuine current, the world seems to soften. Doors open with ease. The right people appear. Help arrives unexpectedly. Coincidences stack up in a pattern too elegant to ignore. A client of mine, a former accountant, felt trapped for years. When she finally honored a long-buried passion for holistic health and enrolled in a course, despite zero clear career path, synchronicity took over. A classmate mentioned a small clinic looking for help. A relative asked her to give a wellness talk at their company. A textbook she needed was donated to her local library the week she went looking for it. She wasn't chasing, she was aligning, and life began to meet her movement with matching momentum. Neuroscience offers a lens here too. When you act from a place of inner truth and safety, your nervous system shifts into what's called the ventral vagal state, a state of social engagement and calm alertness. In this state, your perception sharpens. You become more attuned to patterns and opportunities that resonate with your true path. It's a state of directional dopamine, where what is correct for you seems to subtly illuminate itself. The essence is this: inner misalignment creates outer resistance. Inner alignment creates outer flow. The doors meant for you do not require you to knock them down. They sense your presence and swing open. Synchronicity isn't a reward for being good. It's a compass for being true. It doesn't come to make you happy. It comes to show you the way. When you're off path, guidance speaks through blockage. When you're on path, guidance speaks through opening. 6. The axis shift. From controlling life to cooperating with it. This brings us to the pivotal shift. If we're not meant to force outcomes, does guidance mean we become passive? Do we just sit and wait? This is the critical misunderstanding. Letting go of control is not about inaction. It's about changing the axis from which you act. You shift from acting from fear to acting from clarity. You stop imposing your will and start discovering your way. People don't cease living when they let go. They cease striving. They stop trying to pry open doors that are clearly locked. And in that purposeful stillness, a capacity the ego drowns out becomes audible, deep listening. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." When you are constantly running outward chasing validation, avoiding solitude, drowning out inner questions with noise, you cannot hear the subtle guidance within. No matter how much you do, it feels tangled and futile because the internal operating system is fear. Action born from clarity feels distinctly different. It is light, focused, and almost effortless. It lacks the desperation of trying to prove something. It feels like following a thread you finally found in the dark. A powerful metaphor is the automatic door. If you stand too close, push against it, or try to pull it, it remains sealed. It only opens when you approach at a natural pace from the right direction. Life's opportunities often function the same way. The more you desperately claw at them, the more they retreat. But when you align yourself, when you develop the skills, cultivate the mindset, become the person for whom that opportunity is a natural fit, it opens as you approach, as if recognizing you. This is the axis shift. It's not about stopping. It's about no longer running faster than your soul can travel. It's living from a place of internal congruence, where your actions are expressions of who you are, not defenses against what you fear. When the inner noise settles, the outer path becomes astonishingly clear. 7. Peace is the true north, the ultimate sign of alignment. Finally, we arrive at the most reliable metric. How do you know, beyond doubt, that you are where you're meant to be, moving at the right rhythm? It's not success, not speed, not external approval. The ego can manufacture all of those through force. There is only one indicator that cannot be faked, a sign Jung considered the hallmark of the self in charge, a deep, abiding peace. This isn't the peace of everything being perfect. It's the peace of knowing you are aligned, even amidst challenge. It doesn't come from certainty about the future, but from certainty about your place in the present moment. It's the feeling that even without a map, you are not lost. Jung believed this peace is the natural state of the psyche when it is not at war with itself. When your inner world is ordered correctly, you no longer need to wrestle life into submission. You feel carried, supported, guided. Think of a bird soaring on a thermal updraft. It isn't motionless, but it's not frantically flapping against the wind either. It has spread its wings and found the current that does the lifting. Your peace feels like that. You are not inert. You are in a state of cooperation with a force far more intelligent than your frantic planning. This is beautifully illustrated in the biblical story of Jesus asleep in the boat during a storm. The waves were real. The danger was tangible. The peace he embodied did not come from the absence of the storm, but from his unwavering alignment with a deeper reality within it. His famous question cuts to the core. Why are you afraid? Where is your faith? Your peace operates as that same inner barometer. When it evaporates, you have drifted from your axis. When it returns, you have realigned. Peace never lies. It is the quiet voice of the soul, the internal homing beacon placed within you, so you would always know your true direction. Reflect on the entire journey we've walked through. Guidance rarely comes as a thunderclap. It arrives in the subtle textures of your inner life, the moments you feel lighter, the breaths that come easier, the quiet yes that arises when you consider a new direction. Every apparent delay, every frustrating symptom, every door that closed wasn't a rejection. It was a redirection. It was a compassionate intelligence reshaping your trajectory so you could arrive not at a random destination, but at the one your soul has been calling you toward all along. Not forcing is not a weakness. It is the ultimate sophistication, the mature trust in a navigation system wiser than your own fears. It is learning to let the universe row the boat while you simply steer by the stars of your own inner peace. If this exploration has resonated with you, if it has named a season you're walking through, share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And if you're ready to walk deeper into this journey of living from alignment, of letting a wisdom greater than fear chart your course, then subscribe. Let's continue this exploration together. Until then, remember, the most powerful step you can take is sometimes the courage to stop, listen, and trust that you are being guided, even now, especially now.